Hello there, it is Dream, and today we are doing a kit breakdown and guide for the unit that I am probably most well known for pulling at this point, Dantalion. I will be covering all of his notable skills while also showing you how they work in battle with real gameplay examples, and then afterwards I will do a rundown of how to rank him up, what gear to give him, and finally what units he pairs best with. So let's start off with an overview. Dantalion is a destroyer type unit with the special ability to deal physical, magical, or mixed damage to his opponents. In PvP, he becomes a feared magical sniper who can one-shot even the tankiest of units. In PvE, you can use him to dish out AoE debuffs, snipe injured enemies, and he even carries the main leadership aura for the faction of Iria. And so, let's dive into that kit. First, his trait, Path of Kingship. This increases Dantalion's attack and defense by a scaling percent, while also giving him HP recovery and 1 energy anytime any character is defeated in battle. This means his allies, the enemies, and even summonable units like Inanna's Guard. Now, when it comes to starring him up, he has 2 damage breakpoints, and they are rank 2 and rank 4, increasing his attack and defense gain to 10% and 15% respectively. His rank 3 increases his HP recovery when a unit is defeated from 20% to 30%. However, I would personally opt to keep him at rank 2 and move on to other units until you are willing to make that push for rank 4, either because you pulled an extra dupe of him, pushing him up further and closer to that goal, or all of your other good units are already at their breakpoints. And then of course, for our whales out there and our unfortunate souls who can't seem to pull anything but dupes out of their misses on banners, his rank 5 adds 15% HP to his trait and adds 5% more healing to his passive. On the surface, it might seem underwhelming to only gain HP and not more attack or defense, but when you pair that with his favorite weapon, which also scales off of his total HP, it only adds to his dominance in the early meta. And so now, onto his notable skills. Dantalion has a lot of useful abilities, and so I will be grouping them into 3 categories: his single target attacks, his AoE attacks, and his passives. So we're going to start off with those single target attacks. First, his innate skill, Dawnlight. Before attacking, swap 2 of the target's buffs with 2 level 1 debuffs that will last for 1 turn. Then, deal 130% magical damage based off of your physical attack. This is a ranged ability with a range of 3 tiles, allowing him to be at a safe distance to one-shot or finish off weakened enemies. In PvP Clash Defense, you will often see him paired alongside an assembly beacon, extending his range to a 6-tile radius, insta-killing anything that dares come close. And next, we have his other single target skill, Energy Depleting Blow. This is a melee attack that deals 130% physical damage while depleting all energy from the target. I assume down the road there will be fights that can be manipulated by stealing all of an elite enemy's energy and locking them out of casting certain skills while they recover, but overall, I assume this will be a more niche skill because of its long cooldown of 4 turns. However, I will say that Dantalion is rocking one of the highest base attacks in this game, even compared to units that have yet to come to global, and so this will be a very powerful burst damage skill when paired with his very first passive. And that first passive is Unsheathe. Before initiating an active melee attack, deal magical damage equal to 40% of your physical attack stat. Additionally, if a target has a shield, inflict vulnerability 2 on them that will last for 2 turns before attacking. This debuff increases the target's damage taken by 20%, and this effect as a whole can only be activated once per round. This ends up adding up to about 25% extra damage output to his melee nuke damage. It can potentially also be used to help his team crack shields faster, or set up a teammate like Barrel to take advantage of 20% damage app while bypassing something like a physical shield altogether. The biggest downside to this passive is that it's limited to melee attacks, meaning that it can only be activated by 2 of his skills or a melee basic attack. Even when using his AoE or range skills in a melee range will not trigger this ability. So again, this is something that I assume will only see very niche use after you have leveled him up high enough to have other options to pick from. His next passive is something that he's very well known for Iria. This is a leadership aura for all Iria faction allies, granting them 10% attack, 20% defense, and 20% extra damage dealt to enemies with 3 or more debuffs. This applies to a lot of the most commonly used SSR units in global. The 3 free ones from the Sword of Convallaria, Edda, our newest debut unit, Inanna, most people's selector if they spent money, and even Nungle, who was recently on a dual banner of her own. I also want to give a shout out to Crimson Falcon, who also gets this buff, and who you can rank up to 5 stars for free from the Voyage Memento. And then his final passive is probably a skill that we won't see much use of until way later down the line, but I still want to talk about it. Inspired Healing. After initiating an active attack, passively heal the ally with the lowest HP in battle by 20% of your physical attack. This means that like his leadership aura, it will reach the entire battlefield. Down the line, Dantalion will be replaced by other, more powerful damage dealers. But even when that day does come, he will have a place in some teams by using his healing passive, his leadership aura, while offering either AoE debuffs, AoE knockback, or single target nukes to help finish enemies off. But again, this is just me giving you guys insight on how he will be used way later down the line. For right now, he is still a very, very powerful DPS and a very, very feared unit in PvP. And so we are finally onto his AoE skills. The first one that he gets access to is Daybreak. This deals 40% physical damage to all enemies in a 3-tile wide and 2-tile deep area, inflicting them with blocked healing received for 2 turns. Afterwards, he will unleash another attack, dealing magical damage equal to 40% of his physical attack, and dispel 2 buffs from any target hit. This can be very powerful in PvP to block units from being healed, as he normally moves before any of the healers get a chance to, making them use their turn to instead dispel the debuff, but leaving the units at low HP going into the next round. You can also use this in PvE to stop tanky elite units from getting healed while you slowly whittle them down. And then next up, we have Destructive Storm. Deal 50% physical damage to all enemies within a 4-tile radius around Dantalion, inflicting 2 random level 2 attribute debuffs to all enemies hit for 2 turns. While this doesn't do very much damage, the AoE range is huge, and level 2 debuffs are very, very strong. So this helps you build up to the 3 debuffs needed for your area units to deal that bonus 20% damage from his aura, but I assume this will see way more use down the road once Dantalion is better used for a supporting type role instead of being a damage dealer himself. And then of course, finally, we have his rank 11 ultimate ability, Endless Dawn. Firstly, target a single unit to deal melee damage 3 times for 40% physical damage on each hit. Then, deal magical damage equal to 50% of his physical attack to the closest units in the lanes adjacent to and including your melee target, knocking any units hit back 2 tiles, dispelling 1 buff from them as well. This means that you will deal a total of 170% mixed damage to your original target and then 50% magical damage to the adjacent enemies, while also adding any knockback related damage on top of that. The coolest part about this attack to me is that the adjacent lane enemies can be up to 2 tiles further back than your original target, allowing you to use this to billiard enemies further away, either off cliffs, into other environmental dangers, or out of range of attacking your units. This skill also has no forced cooldown, so if you do have a way to energy battery him before his next turn, he can even use this ability back to back. And so now with all of his notable skills covered, let's get into how you should go about ranking him up. And so let's hop into that ranked page. For rank 1, we are going to the right and we are grabbing Unsheathe. Even though this will be replaced down the line, this is still something that you're going to make use of in the early game, so it is worth taking as your first pick. For the left here, this is a low priority Castilla that you will come back for once he becomes an aura bot and once you have way stronger DPS to use than him, so this is way down the line, do not worry about this for now. For rank 3, we are going to the left and we are grabbing Daybreak. This is the AoE attack that takes healing block onto any enemy hit for 2 turns. You'll probably see way more use out of this than you will see the niche use of energy depleting blow. I do not think this is bad, I just think this is a very low Castilla priority after you already know how to use it and what you're going to be using it for specifically in a fight or in a strategy that you want to take advantage of. And then for rank 5, we're going to go to the right and we are taking Tenacity. This will reduce the increased damage you take from Watcher type units by 25%, making you way more survivable against archers and healers and anything that's going to be hitting you at range. On the other side, we do have damage decreased from melee attacks by 30%, which again can also see equal use depending on how you're using him and what you're using him to fight. However, I would probably come back for this more for the 3% attack than actually using this passive. And then of course, for rank 7, we are going to the right and we are taking for Iria, his leadership aura, one of the best ones in the entire game in my opinion, so we are definitely going to the right here. But again, Like I said, Destructive Storm, very, very good at applying debuffs in a very large AoE area. Damage, not that big, but again, this is something you could potentially come back for later down the line to make him more versatile in being a support type character to set up for your other units. Up at rank 9, we get access to two very different kinds of basic attacks. On the right here, we have Shield Break Attack, which is a physical melee basic attack, which basically just makes your attack unblockable and adds 15% attack if you're attacking something with a shield. So, you could see use out of this potentially down the line. However, the left side is way, way cooler. White Sword, basic attack, turns your basic attack into magic damage equal to 90% of your physical attack and makes it ranged. So unfortunately, you cannot use this with Unsheath. However, it does give you access to having your basic attack and your magical nuke both be ranged, meaning you never really have to come into melee range. And then of course, up for our rank 11, we are going to the right and we're going to be taking his ultimate, Endless Dawn. This is the attack that lets him do AoE pushback, AoE dispel, and a ton of damage on whichever character you were originally targeting on. And so now we are back on the test server to show you guys his recommended gear builds. For his weapon, I definitely recommend the Newborn Blade. It gives him not only more HP, but also grants him bonus physical attack based on a percentage of his HP at the start of battle. Not only does he have a naturally high physical attack stat, but he also has a naturally high HP stat too. So this blade is giving him a ton of extra damage. This is definitely the blade I recommend on him. However, if you do not have this, or if you want to put it on someone else, he can also use the Ever Burning Blade as long as you are using him with a unit that scorches, so you can constantly get the amp damage up, or if you are using him to scorch an enemy and everybody is getting the benefit of that, then you can also use this for that. And then of course, Void Stab, always a classic on every single DPS that can wear it, giving crit damage, always good. And so now onto his trinkets. I've been absolutely loving the True Lens on him. The base physical attack, along with the extra crit when attacking from Highland, makes him great on PvP defense for the Highland. Or if you have Ida, you can also summon her box, have him jump on top of it, and immediately start dishing out big crit nukes at range. I've been absolutely loving this. However, you can also use something like the Flying Blade Arm Guard to make sure things are in range of dying to your nuke. Or if you're using him as more of a support later down the line, you can definitely give him the Fancy Hat, which makes him unable to lose his passive, his aura, and his heal by people that can turn off that with a debuff. So Fancy Hat, very, very good for when he's a support. Same thing with Cooling Powder. If he is being put in danger, then turning off being able to lose healing received is very, very good. You can also use something like the Mystery Guardian to turn off being able to be debuffed by Vuln, by physical defense down or magical defense down, along with giving him extra defense when he is attacked from the front. And then of course, as always, shout out to Disaster Bottle to help add debuffs onto enemies to help proc his leadership aura 20% extra damage. And then on to his Tarot Whispers. He is going to love Temptation of the Devil, as he's going to be wanting to finish off or fully just one-hit KO enemies as he gets stronger and stronger. You're going to want physical attack lines on the right here, and then you're going to want the Special Devil passive as the final line, which allows you to get stacks twice as fast. On the other side of that, if you're not going to be killing lots of enemies over and over again inside of one battle, you can also go to the Rays of the Sun if you are whittling down one single big enemy, as you will be ignoring 20% of the defense from an injured ally as you slowly whittle it down. Again, you're probably going to want the bonus line on here and all physical attack all the way down. Alright, now let's talk about his skill builds and how to pick which skills you're going to bring. This, what I have right here, is basically my default build that I like running on him. I take the ranged magic attack for his basic, I take the tenacity as his reaction, I take his innate for the ranged nuke, I take his Endless Dawn ultimate for some AoE damage and possible AoE pushback off of cliffs, and then I take for Iria his leadership aura. However, if you're following my rank up guide, the beginning of your journey is probably going to look more like this, which is perfectly okay. This is basically how you're going to run him until you get him to rank 7. Once you get to rank 7, you're basically going to replace this with his leadership aura, and you'll probably be running some variation of this up until rank 11. Like I said, if you are willing to invest the Castillas, you can start switching this up and do some stuff like this on your way there, but again, this is something that's very, very low priority, and you should only do if you're sure you're going to have the Castillas for all of your other units. And of course, down the line, eventually, once he is a support in a team, I will probably be running him something like this, where I'm running his leadership aura, I am running his inspired healing, and then I'm running his AoE debuffs to help stack up debuffs for his leadership aura. So something like this down the line is eventually what he will end up like. And I'll probably end up switching this, like I said, to the fancy hat. And so it'll end up looking something like this down the line. And then to finish off this guide, I would like to highlight 2 characters that I love bringing with my Danny boy. I already talked about her a little bit earlier, but our girl Ida makes him absolutely insane, giving him a box to stand on for high ground so that he can take advantage of the true lens, along with being able to throw that wine barrel to help protect him by slowing all of the enemies and giving them a nasty magic defense shred. She also has the chance to buff him before he starts dishing out all his nukes, making it way easier to one-shot everything that's coming at you. And then of course, she also takes advantage of his leadership aura being a member of Iria. Speaking of members of Iria, his sister Inanna is another unit I love bringing with him. Her guard, being able to go up close and cover for him to keep him out of danger, even safer while he's in the front line, doing that big damage to anything that walks up, is very nice. Along with, of course, letting him act twice, so if 2 things walk up into Ida's puddle, he can just bam, one-shot one, bam, one-shot the other, all in the same turn. And so yeah, I've just absolutely loved running those 3 units as a trio in my PvP teams and my PvE teams. And so that'll wrap it up for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, I have other character breakdowns on my channel already, and I plan to keep making these for more and more characters, including the new ones that are coming out. So if that sounds good to you, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in a future one. Thank you so much for watching. Of course, as always, I have been Dream. Until next time, please stay safe, stay cute, much love, a boo, a yeah.